It wasn't quite as bad last time, but I did notice that there was a strip of about 5 or 6 people on the right upper side of the screen, uh, placed vertically, but it was a smaller strip this time.
Yeah, we should make sure and get those when people are sharing the screen, move those off to the side.
Good idea.
Ron's with us. So we're up to 8,
Hello, everyone.
and we got 3 seconds left. Anne's still in Scotland, so she wanted this recorded, and Scott Shields is tied up with his own club meeting tonight. I didn't realize that we were putting these on top of his club.
Must be a board meeting for Scott because the Motor City usually meets on Monday nights.
Oh, really? So it could be a board
Well, they
meeting.
did anyway when I was
Well, he said it's what he gets for being vice president.
in there. Yeah.
So that's
That's
maybe that is
thankless
a board
job.
meeting.
Yeah, it's probably a board meeting.
All right, Mr. Hagopian's here.
Yeah.
Guys,
Hi,
all
Bob.
right.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Bob.
Hello.
Bob,
Hi.
hi, Ann.
So we're being recorded, so don't say anything bad about people. Not that it matters. I'm gonna call Kevin, see if he's awake. Are you awake? It's a Wednesday night meeting.
Linda, that looks like a margarita.
All right, bye.
It's a wine cocktail.
Ooh, it looks good.
Yeah, it is good. Refreshing.
Kevin is going to join right now.
I hope Tom comes.
So
He has a
do I.
lot.
Tom's the guy that by accident does more than I'll ever get around to doing.
This was hard, it's very time consuming. I didn't have that much time, but I'm hoping if not tonight, maybe next, that you could go into detail when making these images, how you can get like a singular person or a sign to really stand out clear and sharp, when
Okay.
you're opaquing everything else. And
All right. Well, the idea was, I think for the next week or 2 or 3, we're going to try a meeting 2 or 3. We're going to try and slow down and let everybody kind of absorb all of this massive
the bits and
information.
pieces. Yeah.
Yeah. And let you guys practice on Photoshop skills too.
Yeah, this has really forced me to do that, which is great.
No.
I think where I need help is on colorization. Like if you want to change a color of something, because I was noticing that Carmen Chiriaco, I think is
Yeah.
how you might say his name, is he does a lot of that where he changes colors.
Right.
And I tried to do that and it was a failure, but
Tom's our expert and he just signed on.
good.
So it's probably time to get started. We got Tom and Kevin now.
Good thing you called, Bob.
Try the
Kevin.
color changer in Photoshop, the color changer brush, whatever it's called.
There's a number of ways you can do that, and we can look at some of the options. I'm glad you brought it up, Ann, because there's a couple of your pictures I was going to talk about that.
Yeah, there's a couple I wanted, and I tried and it just was not working.
Okay. Well, we
I
can
know I
talk
sent
about
you a
it.
crazy number of samples. It was because I went through all of Carmine's pictures that were on his website, and I tried to tries his different techniques. In fact, you'll see there's one that I had the same actual pic, almost the same picture of Civita in Italy. And I tried to mimic what he was doing. Wasn't real successful, wasn't bad, but it wasn't as good as his.
I'd say you did a pretty good job. So we're gonna take a look. It's
Okay,
I'm
thanks.
That's
really
good.
glad at how well you guys are digging into these, and I'm embarrassed. I got too much on my plate. I didn't get much done.
Well, I'm home, with the COVID, I never go anywhere and I'm retired, so there's not much else to do.
I'm gonna take the screen.
Go for
Oh,
it.
yeah, you have to disable, Bob.
Oh, that's right. I got that stupid security thing.
At the end, I have a video. It's about 8 minutes long. I want to show. I think it has to do with our next assignment. So I know we want to take
I've
a look
got
at
the
Photoshop.
Ann Arbor Camera Club dialing in. Do we know anything about that?
Nope. I like the picture.
Would that be Tom Engel? He's a
Yeah,
member.
Tom Eagle, yeah.
Oh, that'd be Tom. There he is. That is. Okay.
Hey, Tom.
Am I ready to go, Bob?
You bet.
Oh.
You should be.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Even dozen people.
Okay, I've got the pictures on the upper left, so I'm gonna make that smaller and move it way over to the upper right. I'm gonna move it over to the upper left. Now, is everything clear on the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Good. All right. And Tom, since you were last one in, you're first up on the,
Okay.
tell us where you took this. I couldn't figure it out.
It's in Chicago. Not exactly where. It's kind of northern part of downtown, I guess.
Okay.
I don't remember. We were walking along the water one morning. I just kind of liked what I saw.
Okay, so that's your original shot, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. And then you did the black and white, what I thought was really pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah. So I tried doing the vertical, but it kind of went off the screen, so it didn't really have what I wanted. So then I just kind of tilted at a slight angle, but that meant I had to also do the bottom at the opposite angle. So I guess you kind of
Okay.
divided it in two. I did one where I did it all at this angle, and then I used the top half, and then I did the other one at the bottom, and then I used the bottom half and just kind of combined them.
Well, that's good. You're improvising, and that's what a lot of this is just, as you go along, you have to just make it happen.
That's really well done.
Yeah, I like that, Tom.
Thanks. Kind of like the Aurora over Chicago or something. I guess I did. Is that? I don't know what that is.
Now that's it looks like the color version when you
Yeah.
went, and you probably used difference for the blending mode.
Yeah, on this one I used difference. I think I forget. Was one of them in black and white? I don't remember doing that one.
Well, that's the black and white, and that's the,
Yeah, this is what I did here. I remember this. I don't remember doing it in black and white. Maybe I sent that too. I don't know.
okay, then let me see. One of the things I wanted to talk about is when you go with a difference blending mode, it ends up very dark. So let's do this because this covers a lot of things for a lot of people. Almost always you have to go back into Camera Raw and take a look at your exposure and start turning this up. And as I start turning this up, you'll see how the picture.
Right. So when I did this in Camera Raw, I wasn't seeing it change in real time. I had it would come up and then I had to hit OK and then it changed it. And I don't know what. Maybe I did something different.
Yeah, sometimes you have to wait a second before it kicks in. Now,
Okay.
there's different ways of doing this. Instead of just bringing the general exposure up, you can take just the highlights and bring those up. You get one effect. You can bring up the shadows to get a different kind of effect. So all of these things in here are going to have different impacts on this. But if you're trying to come up with a night scene, this is going probably in the wrong direction, but you don't necessarily have to make these night scenes. This can be a day scene. And
Sure. So
Go
how
ahead.
did you bring up Camera Raw in this game? Maybe I did it something different. What did you do to bring up Camera Raw?
I'm in Bridge. I started out in
Oh,
Bridge.
you're in Bridge. Okay, I was
Okay.
doing it in
But-
Photoshop.
If you're in Lightroom,
I was in Photoshop.
well, then you can go to Filter Camera Raw.
Yeah, that's what I did. And then when I do
Okay.
that, it doesn't give you the real time It doesn't adjust it.
Did you blend the two layers together?
Maybe I didn't do that. I had.
Okay,
I had
because
Yeah,
if you
Gotta
just
make a
take,
composite.
if you
Okay,
just
I'll
take
try that
that the top layer, that blended layer, it won't show up very well. So what you have to
Okay.
do is blend them together and then take it into
Okay,
Camera Raw.
I'll do that then next time.
Okay.
Okay.
Gary, you know what comes to mind is I wonder how that would look inverted.
Flip it around.
Yeah, just as a
I thought
negative.
about that, having the
No,
having the blur on
as a
top.
negative.
That'd be
No, as a
kind of cool
negative.
too. Yeah, there's, but you know, this is where you take a look at, you know, a texture can, you know, bring out all the detail. Sometimes I don't use clarity a lot, but in some of these, this really makes the picture pop. And we're not trying to be subtle with these changes when you're doing these kind of things. So, you know, try the dehaze, try the clarity, go down to the colors and take a look at the individual colors and see how these are impacted. Now, these comments are for everyone on every one of your pictures. You're going to have to go through this process after you blend those together, take them back into Camera Raw and take a look at all the coloration. And we were talking about the colors. And one of the things, one of the really good tools here is the, let's see, where is it? The split toning. What this does is allows you to give a different color to the shadows and to the highlights. And this can be really effective in a lot of pictures. Not so in this picture as much, but it's always a good idea if your highlights to use a yellow or an orange. And it adds this, as I've taken this across, you can see what happens to the highlights. They get real warmed up. And then if you take in the shadows, take your hue over to the blues and purples.
Wow, that makes a big difference.
And then you have that combination of the bluish shadows and the real warm highlights. And you can play with those and see what kind of effect you get. But there's all kinds of opportunities here that you just have to spend some time after you do the blending, take it back into Camera Raw and start playing with the different
Right.
sliders here.
Okay.
So how did you do that? Like, was that supposed to show up on my screen? I didn't see how you were doing that.
Go back into Camera Raw. The adjustments are still here.
Linda, I think you need to move the pictures of
Yep,
us.
I did it. I did
Down
it,
to the
Bob.
bottom.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, did you get that? So here's
yep.
split,
I see it.
split toning,
Mm-hmm.
and you know your basic exposure and contrast and things like that are here. So you're going to spend a lot of time with this, even with temperature. You know, you can warm up your picture or cool it down depending on the kind of effect, especially at night. Colder tones are better for night pictures than warmer tones.
Does somebody have the meeting invitation? Could you send it to Ken Graywall?
Yeah.
I can't find it.
I think I can do that here.
So here's a picture of the bean.
Yeah, that's the original picture, and then I actually sent another copy of it you can get rid of, and then the third one, that's what I did with it.
Yeah, I like that. I like the, you know, in the bean, you can actually see the,
So this one, I found a radial filter, but only you could kind of put a oval around what you want. So I basically covered the bean and the radial filter blur, and then turn the background black and white.
okay, I was wondering how you did that. That's pretty clever. I like that. Because normally this would be just going straight up with the motion blur.
Right, so it's a motion blur, but it's called radial. You go under motion, you go under blur, and then there was like another menu pick. It give you a bunch of different kinds of blurs, and
Yeah.
one was called radial, and that's what I used here. After I took myself out of it first.
And so you turn the background black and white.
Yeah, I made a layer. Yeah, so I basically I had to select the bean and make a layer. And then make everything else that's not in there black and white, and then I use a radial filter on the selection, I guess.
Okay, here's a hint. If you want to tint that black and white just a little bit blue, you just take it into Camera Raw and turn that temperature down a little bit and see what it does.
Oh, right.
Hmm.
That's doing everything though, right?
Well, it'll affect this just a little bit, but it'll
Yeah,
take that black from going from neutral and it sends it over to the blues a little bit, and they kind of blend together a little bit closer in
Right.
terms of the effect. So
So I was doing camera raw on each layer, like on a filter, I'd say camera raw filter on a layer, and then that's where you can't really see it until you're done. You can't, it doesn't do it real time.
yeah, this is usually the last step when I finish in Photoshop. Then I take it into camera and I do all the little tweaking, you know, with the colors and things like that.
Well, in this one, I didn't use difference. I used some other one. I should have brought up Photoshop. I forget what it was called. What are the different blend modes?
There's about 15 of them.
Yeah, it was it was called, see, let me bring up Photoshop and see if I can remember what it was called.
Let me open this and we'll take a quick look because there's
I tried to send the Photoshop files, but it was too big. Like I sent one, and then the next morning it was only like 30% of the way. So I just,
okay. So you can see all these different blending modes. There's and I'm going to talk a little bit later. I started doing some pictures where I did a
so
blending mode.
it was the soft light. I think it was soft light.
Yeah, there's screen, there's lighten, soft light, hard light,
Or
vivid
maybe it
light.
was screen. I don't remember. What
And you really have to just play with them to see the effect that you're going to get. And what I did is I tried one, blended it together, then made another copy of the original, then went to another blending mode, and I started doing that over and over again just to see what kind of crazy combinations you can get.
Right.
And sometimes it works. You can get something that's really interesting. So yeah, don't be afraid to try that. That's, don't save. Okay, let me go.
So yeah, it was fun to play with for sure. Just kind of.
Yeah, and this is pretty good. Both of these are excellent.
Thanks.
Okay, Mike. So
That one shouldn't have been in there. I don't know why that one got in there.
which one? That one?
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Okay. Now this is not a mistake. This looks pretty good.
Yeah, and I was actually excited with myself when I found out I was able to go through and use the black brush and go to each one of the individual lights and highlight the lights. I was happy with that.
Yes.
Of the three that I did. Now, on yours, what I was confused with is when you were, what do you call that when you're painting out the effect?
Masking.
Masking, okay. So when you're doing the masking, I noticed that your brushes were black on the side. I couldn't get any of my brushes or tools to be black. I went down to the little tool. It looks like it's a little arrow pointing down. And when you click on that, it flips the black square and the white square.
Right.
But none of my tools changed colors.
Okay, let me do that real quick here. I'll duplicate the layer. Now you create a mask by going down here and getting this little rectangle with a circle.
Right?
It should be all white.
Yep.
Now, if you want to cut through that to see it, you need a black brush. So you go over to your colors here. You can either hit the D on the keyboard, which will send it back to a default,
Okay.
and you can flip between black and white just by hitting that little arrow.
Yeah, I saw that.
You want to paint with black because that'll cut the hole in your white background and show what's underneath. It'll reveal
Okay.
what's underneath it. So you take a brush, and I usually use a soft brush, not the hard one with the hard edge, because that'll show the edge too easily. I'll take a soft brush and probably an opacity of about 40%, and then I'll start painting over to go through it.
Okay.
And remember
And-
to paint on the mask, not on the original.
Right. If you click over here on the painting, you're going to end up, doing that.
Yeah.
You got to make sure that you're connected to the mask, and
Okay.
then it'll cut through. So
Well, show them how the brush will cut through that. Or paint black in the little square. Confusing. Just take the brush and brush over the, or you use,
well, right now I've got two layers that are identical, so it won't show
Yeah.
much if I do that.
Right.
So let me just go into image adjustments, black and white, and I'll give this a tint or something here. Say, okay. So underneath I've got a sepia colored, and this is my top layer. I'll make the mask. I'll go get a brush, make it a little bit smaller. And now I start painting over, and you can see I'm erasing through the top, and I'm seeing the bottom. You can see now on the mask here, I've got a little black hole
Right.
mask. That shows you that I'm cutting through the top layer and revealing what's going on in the lower layer. Now, if I decide I don't want to do that, I go over here and just switch back to white. I fill that right in.
Right. Yeah, I was able to do that after I tried it for a little while. And then the issue I was having was that when I was in Camera Raw, just like the other guy mentioned, I couldn't get it to show the actual real-time changes.
If you're taking the mask into Camera Raw, you're not going to be able to see anything. You have to combine these two layers before you go back into Camera Raw.
Is that flattening?
Yeah, yes. Just click on both of them, right click, and merge layers.
Oh, merge layers. Okay.
Oh.
You probably want to make a copy first in case you.
Yeah, that's a good point. What I do is I usually duplicate the bottom layer again, so I have that.
Okay.
Then I hold down the command key, click so that they're both highlighted, right click, merge layers. And now I've still got my original because I just made a copy of it. And now I've got a finished copy of the blended mode.
Okay.
Or if you don't want to mess up your changes, you could put everything into a group and then just copy the group and then
Yep.
then you like, because there might be some changes you might want to go back to, right?
Okay.
Linda, I think your question earlier on how do you make a part of the image stand out? It's exactly the same process.
Yeah, that whole thing he just mentioned about merging layers, and I mean, I don't know anything about any of that. So I just think there's still so much I don't know.
You'll be saying that in 3 years.
I realize that, but it's hard every time I want to do something a little different. I don't know how to do it, so I got to find a YouTube video, find one that explains it the way I can understand it, go back. It's just been a bit cumbersome for me having.
Well, try to think of layers and mask as like having a copy machine and an X-Acto blade. And every time you right click on your background, you say duplicate the layer, you're just putting it in the Xerox machine and making another copy and laying it on top of your desk. When you create a mask, what you're doing is taking an X-Acto blade, the equivalent of taking an X-Acto blade, and just cutting a hole in the top picture and seeing what's underneath. Okay?
I understand that. When you start talking about how you merge it or save it, because one of the problems I had, I think I sent you 2 images. I actually had a third one that was a nature photo that I tried using this technique with wildflowers. And it turned out really cool. And I saved it to Lightroom. But then I went back later and started playing with it and did something a little different. And I wanted to save that. So I saved that. And then I lost my original image.
The second one you want to save as with a different number. I always
see, and I don't know any of that stuff.
Well,
so
when it comes up with a file
frustrating.
name, when it comes up with a file name when you're getting ready to save,
Yeah.
I always insert a V2 or a V3.
Okay.
So I keep them separate.
Yeah, when we go up here to file.
Linda, the other thing to do in Lightroom, make a virtual copy, and then and then just play with the virtual copy, and you'll still have your original. And
you mean
in Lightroom too, there's a history. You can go back on the history part to wherever you were before.
If you're coming from Lightroom, I always make a virtual copy, and that's the one I take into Photoshop to fool with. I fool with it in Photoshop, and I get it to where I like it, and then I save it, but I always put a different name. I modify the name somehow.
Okay.
So that they save back.
Yep, that makes sense. Okay.
Gary, what's the difference between a merged layer and a flattened image?
Well, if you have more than 2 or 3 layers, you may not want to flatten everything into one. you may just want to take a couple of these layers and blend them together and keep your background separate. So merge is just taking 2 or more layers and blending them together. Flatten is taking everything and bringing it back down to 1 layer.
Okay, okay.
And a good idea is when you're working with a lot of layers and you're ready to start flattening and merging and things like that, is save one file with all your layers. Just call it layers and give it a name. And
save
keep
it
that
as a
separate so
PSD.
that if you want to go back, you can always go back and pull that one back in and instead of starting over.
Okay, thank
So
you.
you may end up with a copy of all the layers, a copy with just the merged layers, another copy. And you're going to learn this as you get more involved with layers and complicated projects. You don't want to just flatten everything and save it, because then you're done. If you save a file with all the layers, you can always go back in, and especially if they're smart objects, you can start going back in and making changes and getting it done.
So when you save them, where are they being saved to?
Back to the same, should be back to the same folder. If you say save as.
Oh, I don't even have a folder. I don't even.
Well, you're coming from Lightroom, Linda?
So what I do is I take the image raw and then I open as a smart object in Photoshop.
Right.
When I'm done with it in Photoshop, I hit, I think, Control W, it just goes back in Lightroom. That's all I know how to do.
I don't know the Control W, but I just hit Save As. and
Okay.
then modify the name and it'll put it back in Lightroom in the same folder.
So you can save each individual layer that you create that way?
No, I save each modification of the file. So for example, if I take it from Lightroom, right click, bring it into Photoshop, do a whole bunch of crap on it, have a bunch of layers, I keep it as a PSD file, and I save it back to Lightroom as a PSD with a different name. That way, at a later date, I can reload it into Photoshop and have it right where it was.
And all those layers you created will show up again?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom, you do a lot of this. Do you have any tips on
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't do a save as, when I save it as a, I don't know what time I'm talking about, but for me, I just save it as a PSD, and then I have 2 separate files. I have an NEF, the original raw file, in my Lightroom, then I have a PSD version of it in my Lightroom.
Correct.
Coming from Photoshop, so it just does it automatically.
Right, and you may have multiple PSDs if you
Right,
screw
if
around
you're
with
doing
it
a bunch.
different ways.
But what's a PSD?
That's just a different file format.
It's the
Oh, not a
Photoshop.
TIFF as opposed to like,
TIFF is fine too.
TIFF is
TIFF
fine
seems-
too?
TIFF will
Okay.
work. I think TIFF is a little bigger.
All right. I think mine always save as a TIFF.
Those are called extensions, and there's like JPG,
Either-
PSD, TIFF, but it's always a dot, and then the
Yeah.
extension tells you what file it is.
Okay. Well, if TIFF works, I'm fine. Then I don't have to, that's fine for now.
Well, TIFF's fine.
Okay, Mike, so here's another one that you tried, and this is what, a difference blending mode?
Yes.
Okay,
And I wasn't very happy with it, but I didn't have much time last night. And
okay,
hey, I made the reflector pop out.
all right. Good, and this one was interesting. This is this the US Capitol?
Yes.
Okay, and then you did, you started with this, and I think this has got a lot of potential. I wouldn't stop where we are here. I think this looks like this could be a really nice image, especially with the police car in there. That could be fun.
Okay.
And you got this look going that it's almost like a rainy kind of a situation, so you could put some characters in here with umbrellas and you can have some fun with it.
Okay.
That's a good start. I think you understand the technique because I can see the effect coming through.
You bet.
I tried. I fumbled my way through.
Okay, doing good. Linda, all right, tell us what you did here.
I don't even hardly know. I did. Yeah, I did. I made 3 layers. I know I blurred like the bottom layer, and then I tried to kind of offset the next couple layers, and then I did something with opacity so that they all kind of showed up. And then I think I did difference. It's a black and white, so you don't get the colors. But because I offset the image, that's where I felt like I couldn't, I wanted to get the street signs and any words like super sharp, but because I see like at the bottom where it says gallery or G-A-L-L-E, because I offset it and there's 3 of them in that lower left there,
Okay.
I couldn't isolate it. I only really wanted just one.
Okay, well, that's where you're going to use the mask, or you're going to go into the, you've created multiple layers here to get that repetition effect. So if you go in individually into each layer with a mask and you erase this area down here so that you can only see the original, the original is going to be nice and sharp, and you're going to erase the multiple layers that you've created in some of these areas. And that's,
So
that's a good technique.
Are you saying create a mask for like maybe the second layer? Because the bottom layer is the blur.
Right, good, yes.
Create a mask for the second layer and then remove.
Just take your black brush and just erase the second layer in this area so that you're only seeing the first layer.
With a
Okay,
mask.
so I
And then
don't need to make a mask for any other layers, only that second layer.
Well, if you're bringing in a third layer and you know, and that's creating a blur again, do the same thing. Create a mask on that third layer and erase in this area so that you end up with this area being nice and sharp and the rest of it's blurred. And that's a really good technique. Some of the guys that we talked about, those who was it, Van Oost and Carmine, they do that a lot. They select certain areas where they'll mask out the blur so that your eye focuses on a certain part of the picture. Maybe you mask out this area so that this is really sharp and the rest of it is blurred.
In this
Try
case,
it.
Linda, you got to
Don't
do it
worry.
on mask out in 2 different layers.
Okay, the more layers you have, the more masks you would have.
Right.
Right.
Okay, okay.
But I think it's good. You tried the blur. Which
You
works
did
nice.
really good. Looks good.
Oh my gosh, this took me though way too long.
The first ones
Way too
always
long.
do.
You'll get to the point where you'll be just doing this real quick. This will be a 1-minute job to do this. Believe me.
Okay.
You can do it. This looks good. Good start.
Yeah, well, thank you. You're kind. Yeah. So this one didn't really turn out very well. I don't know why. I couldn't seem to get, the blur didn't really show through very well. The other layer is so faint. I really don't know what I did wrong.
Well, you're
I
blurred.
know I did unmask the rail. I wanted that to be super sharp. Maybe I unmasked more than I remember, but I don't know. It just didn't, I don't like
Looks
it.
like you unmasked quite a bit of the buildings.
Was this a night scene to start with?
No. Mm-mm.
Did you
I
use a
did do the
blending
difference.
mode?
I did the difference and I did the blur. I stuck to I just kept it really simple.
Sometimes
still.
if the blur is too light, you won't get that effect. So you have to work on that, darkening that blur layer, and that'll drop the tones down quite a bit because your sky here is all blown out. So
Right.
yeah, that might have been a result of the blur layer being too light.
Okay.
So give that a try. This
So
would be a
you-
good. This would be a good. I know where you took this. This would be a good shot.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're saying the blur area is too light, you meaning the opacity of the blur layer?
Not the opacity, but once you blur it 2 or 3 times and you get that blur effect, it might be such a lighter tone that when you go to the difference, you may not see anything up here. You might have a white sky to begin with. The blur layer is light, and so it ends up being too bright on the final blending mode.
So would you fix that by going to camera raw and then turning down the exposure and
Well, you
bringing
could
it to
take,
highlight or something?
yes, you could take that blur mode into camera raw, turn down the exposure, turn up the dehaze, darken it up a bit. Turn down the black in the picture just to get it to look a little heavier, and then try it in the blending modes. Don't be settling for whatever the default is on these things. You have to create as you go along. That's how you learn to do this. Try it again. This is a good
It's
picture.
definitely a good picture to work with.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Keith, boy, you had some good stuff here, Keith.
Oh, thanks.
Let's start up here.
Just kind of the original shot.
Yep. And then here's the black and white. Wow.
The classic
Really-
Keith
really
Mountain had to
was.
get in there.
And then you did a color version.
Oh,
So
I
how
like
much,
that.
how much work did you do after you made the blend? Did you stop when you made the blend, or did you actually work on this after?
No, I on this one, I just stopped after the blend. I might have done a little bit of work on that, on the cloud. I think I tried it again where I kind of masked out a lot of the blur in the top of the sky. But I liked this one.
Because here's what happens when you go into that difference mode, it gets really dark. So I can tell you that almost every time you do that, you're going to need to go back into Camera Raw and start looking at, doing something like this where you're going to lighten it up. Take the black
I
down.
had used a curves layer to lighten it, but I didn't lighten it quite enough. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of things you can do with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, that's what I
Looks
should have
like
done. The
gorgeous.
Camera Raw would have worked really nice. Yeah.
I think the clouds actually detract from the main image. You did a beautiful job.
Looks like an explosion or something.
Yeah. It does. It looks
Yeah.
more like a
Yeah, like
fire.
it's on fire.
Maybe that orange up there, when you can control the saturation of the orange separately, going in here and turning that down. Maybe that becomes a gray. You can play with the individual colors. But this is a great shot. I mean, this is one I would spend some time on because this
Yeah.
looks really nice. As are all of these. Your selection of subject matter is really great for these. This is another great shot.
This
And
is
here's the black and white.
Are those the shadows, those diagonal lines?
yeah, those are shadows. This is
So in the
inside.
original image, they didn't really show up quite as dramatic.
Wow,
right?
Keith, you really
Yeah, that's
nailed that.
cool.
That looks good. It looks a little bit dark. You might just bring it up just a hair.
Yeah.
And then you can play with the colors too. There's so many colors in here. These oranges and blues.
Yeah.
It just really
When you,
high
do,
impact.
when you do the difference, you create a lot of new colors too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are not natural colors, and it happens every time you use difference. You get these really strange color combinations, but I think they really look great. I mean, if we take this into Camera Raw, and we just turn this exposure up just a bit.
And the dark gray floor really helps.
Yeah, I think, boy, there's this. You can do a lot
Like
with this.
spray paint. Looks like graffiti.
Mhm.
So these colors are created by the filter. They're not in the image and the filter didn't pull them
Well,
out.
there are some oranges and reds in the original image. But,
But the
Right,
blend was
but-
mess
oh
with
yeah,
it.
the blues and stuff are not.
That's a nice shot, Keith.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, and here again, playing with the colors here is important. Maybe the orange, if you decide which way you want to go, look at just the difference of just the oranges, what it makes the impact on the picture. So you're the artist, you have to determine, where you want to go with this. I mean, you could play with this for hours. Great shot. Here's another one. Great black and white.
It sure is.
No,
Colors really strong.
Mhm.
on this one, I added some canvas at the bottom there, and it just had it fill in with content aware, on the bottom of the image. I wanted it to stretch it out a little bit.
Let's see what you were going back to there. Okay. I see what you did.
Nice.
Yeah, that looks great. Love the colors.
Yeah, that's cool colors on that.
It's amazing the impact the black and whites have with when you're doing this.
You bet.
Look at the colors.
Yeah, I had fun doing this. Just something really different.
Mhm.
All those golds and purples and stuff.
Yep.
Oranges.
Yeah, for some reason, these are not color combinations you see in nature by itself. It's just, it's really different. Here's another.
That's stunning.
Nice.
I
I
really
like this, yeah,
Love
this,
this picture.
of the black and whites, this was my favorite, yeah.
Yeah, that's nice, Keith. Good job.
Be sure and not submit that to club.
I can't wait to get a few of these in. This is going to be fun to watch what happens.
I'll tell you what, the color's even better than the black and white.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And
think,
and that
I
would make
think
a difference.
of the
That would
color
make a
conversions
difference.
that you did, I think I like this one the best. I love this red, you know, coming through here and the tones and this is really nice.
Yeah, and the smooth tonality blending between colors.
Wow.
Yeah, this whole area here is just really something, you know, and then the textured wall here.
That's what I like the best is that
Yeah, I
wall.
like that wall. It really came out, the texture there.
That's really great. We're back to this one. Yeah, okay. Good stuff. This is really first class.
Thank you.
Bob.
As you can tell, I didn't spend much time on these.
I get it.
Yeah, I went out and found this one in my library. That's the Greenfield Village, and there really was a very ominous storm coming. So the sky was naturally very dark gray. So I just put some stuff up behind it. And as I look at it right now, I don't like it nearly as well as when I first made it. And, anyway, I wasn't quite sure whether I wanted the verticals to be down in the water or not, but I went for it. I started adding color to it, but I don't know that I got there. There's 3 or 4 of these with the butterfly, and the only reason I threw them in was I started with the butterfly picture, normal, and I started fooling with the blend modes and the blurs and stuff. And all of a sudden, I noticed that I could take the same picture and get 3 or 4 completely different usable photos. That's just a blend mode change.
Wow.
Really?
Yes. And that's
Wow.
a blend mode change, but with a blurred background. And there's a different version of the blurred.
I like the blurred background. That's really a different look.
Yeah, and you didn't do anything
That's
with
really
color?
pretty.
The mode,
No.
Hey, Bob, check your plants I left you.
Yeah.
I just checked mine. I got another caterpillar.
Oh, I gotta go out and look.
Got another one.
When did yours hatch?
It still hasn't hatched.
Oh,
Still hanging in there. I thought it'd be sooner, but
don't kill it.
still waiting.
This was a fresh one that Kevin brought over to my house and we photographed.
Those are good, Bob.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it was just a quick and dirty. I thought I'd try something different in buildings.
yeah, that's, you know, I wish my flower one I wish I hadn't lost it because it actually looked kind of cool because there were a lot of colors in it. And then I added all the colors. It was kind of cool. But anyway, it's gone.
Tom Pernar, are you still there?
Yes.
Okay, I hope you'll comment on some of these here. I need your,
I think they're all doing well. You know?
Yeah.
And
Whose out of these?
That one is mine.
Bob, this is really great. Tell us about this a little bit.
Wow.
This is actually that cube.
Here's the original.
Yeah, and what caught my eye is the
Ooh,
reflection.
good job.
The building looks like it's transparent, and I thought I'd work with that a couple different ways.
So here's some of the things you did. I think I I couldn't help myself. I think on one of these I played with a little bit. This is it looks like right out of the blend mode, you ended up with this.
That's gorgeous.
And that
Yeah,
by itself.
that's the divide or division mode.
Divide.
Blend
Or difference.
difference. Okay, right. Yeah,
then-
I came up with that strange color. Now, this one is I had the difference blend mode, and then I had two other layers, one with pin light and then soft light. And what I did is in the motion blur, I had the 90-degree, and then I did a 45-degree and then a -45 to get the different angles of the building. And with the different blend modes, it came up with these colors.
Man,
Yeah,
you really nailed it on these.
This is really, really good. I only played with it because I thought, and I did some vignetting and some darkening, and I think maybe that just, this is a really minor tweak, but I think going from this to this, I think it really highlights some of the colors
Nice.
even more.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just bringing in a drop shadow top and bottom, a little vignetting, just to give some impact. I think that does it. This is just a beautiful, beautiful image.
So did you do those different modes on different layers then and then blend them
Yes.
together? Okay,
Right. Yep, I did.
really nice.
And that comes from experimenting. So this is good, Bob, that you did this and tried out the other things, because this, there's no rules here.
So when you do something different on each layer, do you have to turn the eyeballs off for the other layers, or do you just highlight?
Well, it depends on what I'm doing. But I think I can't remember now, but I think I left most of them on so I could see what effect the whole thing had
Okay.
on the end result.
Okay.
And that one is a black and white one. And this is a bank building across the street on 6 Mile from that Cube building. I thought
Wow,
it caught my eye as I was driving by, so I
you did good.
thought I'd play
Okay,
with this.
I played with this one too, Bob, and I hope you don't mind, because I
No,
looked at this
no.
and there's certain things I see right away, and I thought the left side looked stronger than the right side. So here's what I did.
Oh,
Wow.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Did you
what a
flip
difference.
it? Did you divide it in half and flip it?
What I did is I selected the left side. Well, first of all, I cropped out the bottom, because I don't think this does anything for the picture.
Yeah.
What you have is the architecture up here, and that's what you have to focus on. But I took a selection of everything, and Bob, you really nailed this with getting it, the picture right down the center, so I didn't have to fool with it too much. What I did is took a selection box and went right down the center here, copied it, and then flipped it horizontally, and this came out.
Oh, nice.
So how did you get those colors like that so prominent?
Well, you just take it into Camera Raw again and start playing. Take the clarity up, take the dehaze up a little bit. I mean, this is graphic art, so normally you wouldn't do that to a normal image that you're dealing with, but you're creating graphic art here, and you have to have the stuff really jump out at you.
Right.
So
Mm.
I like this a lot. I think this has really got
That's cool.
some impact.
Yeah, you did a good job on that one. I like
You
way that
did all
came
the
out.
work. You did it. Okay. And then this one, this is great.
Yeah, I had a little difficulty with this. What I was trying to do, and I didn't have time to finish, but I wanted to blend the top.
You still with us?
We lost him.
Yeah, don't hear them anymore.
I see his picture.
He's frozen.
Of the motion blur in with the sky and also with the wall. What was that?
You're fading in and out, Bob.
Oh, I didn't hear what someone said, but yeah, I was trying to fade the motion blur, with different opacities into the sky and the water at the bottom.
And this is a more refined version of it. And I looked at it and I thought, if we could darken the top and the bottom a little bit like this, I think it brings
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
more
wow, that
intensity
does
to it.
help.
Okay. And that's simply just doing a drop shadow top and bottom in Camera Raw.
Mhm.
Would you call that a drop shadow?
Well, you have I'm not sure. Tom Pinar, what's the drop
Graduated filter.
Word grade, yeah.
graduated filter. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
And just, you drop it top and bottom, and then you go over to the sliders and you just darken a little bit, but it really brings your eye into the center. And I think the other thing I did is that when you have a reflection with water, the reflection generally is a little bit darker than the actual scene. So what I think I did is I selected this bottom area and then just darkened it just a couple of shades, just to give that effect that makes it look more like an actual, reflection rather than just flipping it top to bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a really, really nice image.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, yours is better.
You're going to pick up all these things real quick. So excellent. All three of these are superb. Well done.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
And boy, you have quite a collection here.
Sorry, I overwhelmed you, I think.
I only picked on you twice at the end. I'll save those for the end. But
Okay. So this one was actually not really a night. Well, it was like a morning shot, but those people weren't in it. So my practice, and there was no reflection. So my practice here was, can I do a reflection, and can I put people in it by cutting them out of other pictures and putting them in there? So I went to totally different photos, brought those photos in, and then cut those people out and put them in here.
You did it well.
Oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
that's good.
Plus the flipping for the reflection and everything.
I like the red. This reminds me of Carmine, with his splashes of color. You've got the gold and the yellows here, and then the reds really pop out. I almost want some red on this side just to get a little more balance. Maybe changing her umbrella to a red as
And see,
well.
that's what I don't know how to do.
We can talk about how to do that. That's not that difficult.
Okay.
Once you select that umbrella with a selection tool, it's just a matter of going in and doing a color shift on it.
Okay.
But yeah, this is nice. I like this.
Thank you. So it was, a lot of this was practice for me to try to do the different techniques.
Yes.
That's why there's so many different pictures.
Tom Pernar, any comments?
No, I think that's a nice reflection. You even got the two people, their reflections in there too.
Yeah, that's good.
A lot of people just plop these people, insert figures like that and don't think about the reflection or the shadow sometimes.
Yep, that's a good thing.
But that makes it look more. Weren't they really there?
No,
like
they were in another picture. And this is just very abstract. It's a picture of a reflection in the windows of a building in Chicago. So I did the blur mode and then, unmasked some of it. And then also did, it's one of the first blending modes where you get the little speckles.
I think it's dissolve.
Yeah. So that was a quick one.
Yeah.
That was great.
It's really creative.
Yeah.
This is the one I was telling you I tried to copy Carmen's. He has a picture in his portfolio of this, just almost exactly like this, of Civita in Italy. So I thought, how did he get it to look like that? So I worked a lot on this one because I had a sky, I had to get rid of the sky. And so there's some horizontal blurring in there, just a little bit. And then I had to almost, take the clarity down and the sharpness down to kind of make it, I don't know, ethereal looking on each side.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Where is that located in Italy?
About an hour and a half north of Rome.
North of Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So is it in the Tuscan region?
Not quite.
All right.
Yeah, for photographers, it's a dream place to go to. There's it's just awesome.
This one's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's layering, and then to get the flowers to pop, the few that I picked out, and I don't know if this is the right way to do it, but what I did was I went in and captured with the tool just the flower and then made that a layer. And then captured another flower with the tool, and that's a layer. And then the way I layered them on top of all of the other layers so they would not be blurred by anything. So it was to keep those crisp. There's my top layers, and then the others are below it. I don't know
Really
if that's
nice.
the way to do it or not, but
No, it's obviously it's the right way to do it. And I like the light bleeding in through here in the background. I think that's
that's
nice.
actually the sun using the star, is it called starburst, or it's one of those filters that you use.
Yeah,
Nice job.
Oh, thank you.
Pretty well done.
beautiful. Colors are really nice. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And that's the Flatiron Building in New York. And that was a picture just like that. It was not a good picture, but I thought maybe it would work well with the blending. So that's what I did. This was real easy to do.
Excellent.
I love that building. Wow.
This was another one where Carmen tried to do, he has a couple beach scenes that are very different. So,
This is absolutely stunning.
oh, thank you. So I did a lot of changing on the, the color tones and softening everything and the blurring and softening the blur. This one took me a while.
Really well done.
Thank you.
Wow.
And that's more like the Van Noost. Kind of the theme that I've been going with. If you remember, I did one with New York and the Statue of Liberty, and then I did one in London with the Eye. So this is my one from the Louvre in Paris. And so I have like little things that I saw in the Louvre in there, kind of hidden away.
Mhm.
Just kind of a little fun.
You
It was
really
kind of
nailed
fun.
that one.
Works.
Thank you.
Very nice.
And then this is another one that's similar to Carmen's. He's got somebody with a dog, a person with a dog. And I thought, oh, I got a picture of a guy sitting on a bench with a dog. So I blurred it, and then I added the, in one of my presets in Lightroom, I think it's called sun flares. And that's why you see those colors in there. I added the sun flares.
That's well done.
I like the idea of the horizontal blur and then taking it on there. You picked up the bench, the slats on the bench and all that works really well together.
Thanks. And New York skyline. The only thing I don't like about this is the buildings are too sharp, and I didn't extra sharpen them, so I don't know why it came out that way.
Which blending mode did you use?
I didn't. There's no
You use a
blending.
blending mode, just okay,
Just,
just a
blur.
repetition of the
Yep.
different layers.
Yep. So I don't know if it was the layers in this particular picture that did this, but I tried to make it more, I don't know, softer or something, but I couldn't.
Personally, and the only problem I see with it is that your name is not on the bottom of it.
Oh, thanks.
The biggest problem I see is my name's not on the bottom.
Thanks.
You might want to think about, darkening the sky, again with the drop shadow in the foreground, and give
Okay.
it more of an ominous look, because I think there, that could be interesting. Tom, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll
I think it
try
looks fine. Yeah, I kind of like that sharpness.
Yeah, I like the sharpness.
I like
Okay.
the sharpness.
You don't always see things, sharp like that. And I think that's I like to see things different.
It's an
Okay.
etching kind of a look.
Yeah.
What do you think about adjusting the buildings to be vertical?
Yeah, I would do that.
I like
Oh,
it just
yeah.
like it is. I
You
might,
mean in the geometry section, I think it's called? Is that
Yeah.
what it's called?
yeah.
Just do guided. Actually,
Yeah.
Pop Auto would work.
Okay.
You could probably have popped in a couple more layers in behind. Kinda
Yeah.
Stack up a couple more layers.
Up higher.
I think it's fine,
Yeah.
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was probably one that I did at 4 or 5 in the morning. I've been up late doing these. I get started and I go, okay, maybe I should fix that. And then I fix it, and then I got to go back and undo all the layers I did because I don't like what happened. I got to start all over, and I have to finish before I go to sleep. So this might have been one of my late night ones.
Very good.
Very good. Yeah.
Let's see. Oops.
Ooh, orchids.
Yeah, I've noticed that some of those pictures had like those boxes, in them. So I
Yeah.
thought, how did they get them? So I, just used the little tool that cuts out boxes and, whatever. And I flipped them around and made them a layer. And then I started with the orchids, and it was too blah. So then I brought in a picture of those philodendron leaves that I had and put them in the background.
Look
I
like
really have an eye for this.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah. Oh, she's an artist.
And this is my, again, like a Van Noest one of Rome.
Really nice.
Yeah,
Really good. Yeah.
the
Thank
blur's nice. I like that.
I keep looking for the Beatles to be walking across that.
Yes. Well, now, at Carmen, he used on these crosswalk things, he would put in between, like he had a couple where he put bright red in between. And that was another thing I thought, well, it'd be kind of cool if I could maybe pick up that girl's burgundy color and put some of that in between. But again, I didn't know how to do the color thing, so just moved on.
That's
And this was a building and windows with some reflections in the windows in Soho. And so I just had some fun with that and took the address, and as you can see, there was an address of the 423 Lafayette, New York, and I kind of put that all over the place.
Nice.
And different layers. And then I used, did a lot of I want to emphasize the reds and the yellows with the color mix. And this was just a simple doing the blur mode, line of trees in
Really
Tuscany, and then that dissolve blend.
Hmm.
And I also did the scratch mode for the sky.
You know, I think those boxes are very, very subtle, and I like the look, but maybe they need to pop out just a little bit more so they're not so subtle.
Okay.
You see them, because they're some of them you can't pick up unless you really look at it for a long time, but there's a lot of complexity in here. And it doesn't have to be a whole lot more, just a little bit more. Yeah.
Okay.
Tom, what do you think?
I think I'd just take and make another layer and use a multiply blend mode on that, and then fool with the
okay.
opacity. Yeah, it'll keep it won't change the those bright spots over there, which I think you'd want to keep those.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the
And then-
was the Sunflare edition.
Yeah, and there's some other sunflower. It'd accentuate that a little bit more. Yeah, I think if you just copied that layer and then blended it, try out multiply maybe.
Okay, so when you say layer, because those are all those boxes are a different layer.
Well, you can
Merge 'em?
flatten everything down.
Okay,
Um,
so merge them and then go in and say multiply?
You can actually, without harming all your layers,
Mm-hmm,
it's called a layer stamp,
okay,
and you can take all the layers and merge them, and it merges it into what would be your final image, and you can have that on top, and you can see what that looks like. You know.
okay,
And then take that one and do a copy, a layer copy, and then try one of the blend modes. Maybe overlay might pop that out, or soft light, or darken.
Okay.
I think I'd try multiply first.
okay.
And I think you're just about to the point you need to have a gallery exhibition.
Yeah,
Oh,
there-
thank you.
yeah, you know, there was
I don't
great
know about that,
composition.
but
I
thank
like
you.
that really simple composition there. That was really nice.
This
Just,
one's pretty damn good too.
yeah.
Yeah, this was, I sent a couple of these to my son. This was his favorite.
You might send one to the Nathan Hot Dog Company. They
The
make
comment I had here is this is a night shot, and these grays, I think, if you went into either split toning or just taking the shadows and putting a little blue onto these grays, I think it helps these oranges pop. I don't know if I did that or not. No, I didn't.
Okay,
but,
I'll try that. Cause you talked about that with someone else's to bring down it to the blue.
whoops. Yeah, let
Okay.
me see. Where is that? Right here. Okay. If you go into the split tones, and we won't even worry about the highlights, just go in and take the
It's the
hue over
shadows.
to the blues, and then turn up the saturation. Now you have the color contrast between the bluish tones instead of gray and the oranges, and you can turn up the orange
Yeah, I would turn
probably
it
a little
on.
bit,
Right,
you know.
okay.
But they play real nice together, the orange and
Good
the
suggestion,
grayish
yes.
blues.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
And this was, I did some blurring, and then I used a couple different kind of blur modes. The wavy, I put a wavy mode on the bottom. And then after it was all done, I, just did the oil painting, kind of give it a little texture.
Mhm.
But I probably spent at least 2 hours on this one. This took me a lot of time.
And this is another one, the split toning might help you a bit too with the grays, turning them a little bit bluish. You've got
Okay.
the blue in the boats already, and the oranges. So
Yeah,
that would-
because I didn't know how to get, it was black. I tried to get mostly black, dark. I wanted it dark, but I wanted the blue. Plus, I wanted the orange to show up. So I made those. I captured those by making different layers of every one of those colors.
Yeah,
So-
you have to either turning the temperature down or just go into the shadows with the blues
Or do both.
or do both. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
nice.
Thank you.
and
You could crank the golds up a little.
this one I like a lot. I think it needs to be a little more intense, and that's I did a variation here where you just go a little bit darker.
Yes.
It's a great shot.
Thank you.
And then the last one,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, now that guy wasn't there in the left-hand corner. He's from another shot, but I felt like I needed something in there. So I put him in there, and I liked him there looking at us.
so this is another one. I did a variation. I went to black and white and went a little bit darker to give it that
Oh, I
noir
like
look.
it in black and white. Yeah.
So
These are
Yeah, I
standalone.
like that. That's good.
you got
And so
quite a
when you did
collection
the
here,
black and
Ann.
white, you put the exposure down and the dehaze up? Is that what you did to get it that dark?
Well, let's try it real quick here.
Okay.
Let's change it to black and white, and
Mhm.
then take the temperature or the exposure down. Maybe the shadows have to come back up just a little bit here, and then take clarity. So that's basically,
Okay.
And you
I
could try
like the black and white.
you could try tinting it a bit too.
yeah, you could go to a cold warm to blue tone, you can go to tan, just
Now,
sepia.
how do you do that?
Well,
I
you're going to
think-
have to change it. You can't change it now because we're in black and white mode. So you'd have to take it into Photoshop and then bring it back into, let's see, you'd have to open it, bring it back into Camera Raw, and then do the tinting in that. That's one way of doing it. The other is to go into adjustments and black and white with toning.
So you're seeing the tinting there right underneath the temperature? That's where you would do it?
Well, you're in black and white now, so that you
Yeah.
won't be able. I don't think you're going to do that here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you
Let's see.
can.
You can? Oh, you can. That's good.
Oh,
There you
so you
go.
go down to shadows,
Yeah.
under split toning.
Just split tone.
Okay. All right. Well,
That
thank
looks
you
pretty
very
good too.
much.
I like that.
Yep, I like it toned. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too.
Then if we decide to take the highlights, let's see what happens here. Well, those are reddish. What if we went to the blue? Well,
Mm.
there's all kinds of variations. You're
Yeah.
gonna have to take a look at.
Okay.
You could also apply some LUTs,
Some
Yeah.
who?
lookup tables.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that someday too.
Okay, yeah, that's. what
Yeah,
we might get.
there's you can just tell that there's all kinds of variations here that you know, toning it gives it a different look. I think it's better than just the color version.
Okay, yeah, I do too.
That
Thank you.
glassy street is just gorgeous.
Yes, that really is. Okay, so good. I'm going to show real quick some things that I played with and where I'm going with some things. Let's see. Here's, I think this was the last one. No, that was not it.
Remember that one from his last meeting?
Mhm.
I got to keep going. That was the last one we did last meeting.
Uh-huh.
And then I started playing around. This is a Penobscot building shot that I played with as a night scene with that down in Ann Arbor, Renson. And then I went over to this is at Oakland University. And if you can imagine just the left-hand side of it, this is a mirror. I took the left side, which is a shot of the medical building, and I flipped it so it came out looking like maybe a contemporary cathedral, if you want to really stretch your imagination. And then I thought once I got to this point, I could start playing with multiple layers and doing stuff like this. So you have to go into this kind of looking for these opportunities where you see an image like this when you take it originally and then start flipping it. And here's another version of that. And you can fade these things out, these different multiple layers, make them smaller, fade them into the background, and give it that three-dimensional perspective look. So that was fun to do. That turned out interesting. Did some more downtown night shots. This is the Meridian building downtown, playing with multiple copies. Again, these I started playing with multiple different layering modes, blending modes. And at some point, these trees started to look translucent and you could start seeing through them to the buildings. So that was interesting. This is one I tried about 5 different blending modes on top of each other just to find something that's going to work. And this was actually a late summer scene at Stony Creek Metro Park and ended up looking like a winter storm scene. This is downtown Detroit again, taking multiple blend modes and just stacking them one on top of each other until I found something different.
I just think the buildings by themselves are gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
Doug and I went down to Greenfield Village, and you know, we've talked about finding backgrounds that are, and then just waiting for people to come in to make things happen. This is down by, if you go for a Model T ride, this is the little building that you go into, and there's a little courtyard behind it that's normally not open. The doors were open, and I went in there, and this was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and the way these boxes are laid out and the setting here, this is just, seems to me to be just like a perfect setting waiting for models to come through here. I can see somebody walking past out the door here, maybe somebody in the background, somebody sitting on a little bench. And then I saw a video that I'm going to show you right after this. It's about doing street photography without people. And it has some really interesting concepts in it. So keep that in mind when we do that. This is something called Planets. I don't know if you've ever played with these, but I took some of the downtown pictures that I did and I created these planets. If anybody's interested in knowing how to do this, I've got an action that I can send you. It's only about a 3-4 step quick action and pretty easy to do. This is the Wayne County Courthouse building down in Detroit. That was actually taken during the middle of the day, but by mirroring this and playing some games with blending modes, it takes on a really strange.
I was impressed with what you did with that building. We've taken so many shots there.
This is another corner building down on Woodward, and by mirroring this
Can't do anything.
and taking some
Whoa,
transparency with the different layers, blending them together. Again, this is all experimental. This is, if you ask me how I did it, I probably don't even remember now what it is. Here's another,
This one I love.
hello?
I need to get in here.
this is Grand Rapids street scene, playing around blending modes.
Oh, that's,
Great.
This is the museum in, the art museum in Lansing.
How am I gonna get in there?
See the 3 different characters here in the playing around. And this is the public library at in Rochester Hills. I've been there 1,000 times, and every time I come up the stairs, I say, I got to come back and take this picture. And since we've been doing these things with blending modes and mirroring and stuff like that, I went over there on Monday morning with my camera and just shot. This is what this right part of the picture is actually what it looks like. And then by carefully doing a cut and flip, you end up with this picture, like an alternate reality type image. And I thought, since you do it once, it might be interesting that, oops.
The only thing you need to do is change the arrows.
oh, wow.
So if you do it 3 times, you can create a pattern. It's kind of interesting. So these are the different kind of things I was playing around with. Let me get.
Wow.
Excuse
Go
me
ahead
one
if you have
second,
questions.
Bob. Well, Ann just texted me. I guess she got bumped out, so she's going to dial back in, or
I see her.
okay.
Okay, this video is really only about 8 minutes long, but I think it's worth saying. This is a young photographer who's wise beyond his years, and he talks about street photography without people and a couple of noted photographers that initiated these back in the 70s. And so let's just watch it, and then at the end we can talk about maybe coming up with an assignment for next month.
There's a common misconception when it comes to street photography that in order for a photo to be deemed street photography, there has to be people in the photo. I personally don't believe that to be true at all, but it can be easy to get caught in that mindset that you have to be photographing people in order to be doing street photography. And I fall into that kind of mindset many times when I go out to shoot. The thing is, you can still do street photography without having a single person in your photo. It can be pretty easy to get overwhelmed by the amount of rules in the photography world. And I think rules are great for us as a community to learn like the fundamentals of photography. We should also learn to know when to break those rules. Street photography is capturing the human presence. Now you might think, human presence in a photo with no human presence? That makes no sense. At the risk of sounding like an alien right now, humans, they leave their trace everywhere they go. The presence of humans can span far more than just a physical human being in a photograph. So when you look at it that way, capturing the human presence without having any people in your photo is a lot more easier than you think. A great photographer of our past who shot in this style was Fred Herzog. I recently picked up a book of his work, and a lot of his street photography consists of scenes with 0 people in them. Despite having any people in these photos, Herzog still manages to create street photography that expresses the human experience of the time he was documenting, and he did this through his subject matter. These scenes in his images reflect the human experience, and therefore they can be considered a form of street photography. Most of Herzog's work was shot in Kodachrome color slide film, and this was way before color was regarded as something you'd use for documentary style photography or art photography. So you can already imagine what people thought about his work during the 60s when he was using the medium. It definitely raised a lot of eyebrows, but eventually in the late 60s, Kodachrome became recognized. Herzog's work, however, still stayed under the radar throughout the 70s and 80s. What makes Herzog's photographs of ordinary life in Vancouver so effortlessly beautiful is his great sense of both composition and color. And that's what he used to his advantage when he photographed these ordinary scenes. Kodachrome, the film he shot with, it's a very slow speed film, meaning it's not very sensitive to light. So therefore, it required a relatively slow shutter speed. Now this was fine for Herzog because his approach to street photography consisted of a slow observation, and rather than that fast-paced street photography kind of style that we're so accustomed to. This slower pace that Herzog went with, it resulted in a mastery of composition and color observation. He could pick out any typical scene of daily life and turn it into a work of art. Now these boring scenes may not seem like they held really any substantial importance back then, but today we appreciate them so much more. In my street photography tips video, I mentioned that you should try photographing timeless photographs, images that you couldn't necessarily put a date on by what's in the photo. I still think that's a great challenge for you to put on yourself if you're feeling a little bit uninspired, but I don't think that's the way you should always be photographing, especially when it comes to street photography. A lot of you actually mentioned in the comment section of that video that it is important to document the time that we're living in, and I couldn't agree with you guys more. Let Fred Herzog be a prime example of how important it is to document the ordinary or the boring of our daily lives. You might not think what you're photographing is of any importance, but as time goes on, those images of the past become even more important. Anyway, I'm getting a little carried away. The point of this video is to show that you can photograph these ordinary places and ordinary scenes without any people in them, and that can still be street photography.
Yeah, Kodachrome was 64 ISO.
People are roaming everywhere, and everywhere they go,
Started out at
they
25.
leave some kind of mark. It might be a cigarette butt, it might be a forgotten shoe, a newspaper left on someone's front porch. There are so many things in our environment that resemble the human experience. And so these are the type of things you want to be looking for. I think as street photographers, we can easily get in the mindset that we have to be constantly moving fast, seeking out people to photograph. When we're doing street photography in this manner, where we're not dealing with any people, we can slow down. Working slow when you're first starting out street photography is actually the better way to go about things, in my opinion, because you can really take your time to learn the fundamentals of composition and can really take the time to get to know your camera. All those things that you learn while taking your time, they'll pay dividends in your street photography journey. So don't be afraid to just take your time and go slow. As some street photographers like to say, work the scene. Say you come across an empty phone booth and the phone is unattached, dangling from its cord. Instead of just stopping by and snapping a photo of it and continuing on, work that scene a little bit more and photograph that phone booth from as many different angles as you might think of. Since we're dealing with a scene that has no people, we don't have to feel the pressure of being rushed to just snap and go. We can take our time, actually, in this case. This can be good practice for when you do end up in those situations where you're photographing people to actually work those scenes as well. Color is such a powerful component of photography. And if you use it right, you can make almost any scene, no matter how boring it might be. You can make that scene amazing just by applying color well in your photograph. The use of color in Herzog's work makes his photography so aesthetically beautiful and interesting to look at. And images like that exist everywhere, so it's just a matter of finding them. It'll take a lot of patience, and you might not come around a scene like that in your first go around, so just be patient with it. The more you go out to do street photography, the more you train your eye to see the world in color and light, you'll get better at finding those types of scenes and being ready to photograph them when you find them. Finally, look for light and shadow and how it interacts with your environment. For me, this is the #1 thing I do when I go out to shoot scenes that have no people in them. I look for how light and shadow play with each other and the environment to make an aesthetically nice image. So in this case, you might want to plan to go out to shoot during a bright sunny day. As the sun moves throughout the day, the shadows are going to be moving as well. So if you see a scene that doesn't really strike you at that point in time, come back to it, because you never know how those shadows will change and how that scene will ultimately change. So those are a few tips that you should try out if you do decide to do street photography without any people in them. There are so many different forms of street photography that if you confine yourself to just one particular style, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Finding a style that you like and sticking to that style is perfectly fine. But to only think that you can only shoot in a certain way, to only photograph people in order to do street photography, is very limiting to you as a photographer. And so I highly recommend you explore the other forms of street photography, because you never know what you might learn from doing those other forms that you can carry over back to the form that you like personally. For those new to street photography, don't think that you have to always photograph people. It's all about exploring and experimenting in this early phase if you are new to street photography. I personally actually tend to start off my days shooting still scenes. I find it's a great way to warm myself up. Eventually I get into a rhythm and I feel comfortable enough to photograph people. I know it can be pretty daunting for those who are a little shy or intimidated by this genre. It doesn't have to always be getting in someone's face like Bruce Gilman. You don't have to shoot that way. Some of the most greatest street photographers of our time went at a much slower pace. And so it's just a matter of finding what style suits you best. If you like the content on this channel, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Okay.
That guy's method reminds me of Gary and Tom.
That's the fourth time I watched that.
It's pretty good. So a couple of things. One is maybe an assignment for next time is, and welcome to hear your comments on it, but maybe doing just what he's suggesting. You know, there's not a lot of people around, but maybe, you know, photographing the presence of people, you know, what's out there, things laying around, try some shots like that. But I think from what I heard is that we want to spend some more time on Photoshop techniques and doing things like that. So I think we can do that at the next meeting. I would appreciate if you could send me in specific questions and directions so we can prepare for that. I think Tom and I and Bob will talk and figure out, you know, how we can approach some of the questions you have. So I'm gonna turn it back to everybody so that you can have some comments and talk about where we're going with this.
I would like to learn how to add people like Ann did, or, you know,
What's that guy's name again, Gary?
Which one?
The guy in the video?
Oh boy.
I got Fred
Faisal
Herzog.
Westcott.
Fred Herzog.
Oh, the guy with the book?
Oh, the
The
book.
book was by Herzog, and Amazon has that book right now at a pretty good price. I'm going to order one of those. But the guy that did the video, I'd have to go back and check.
Faisal Westcott.
Faisal Westcott, he has a channel. It's amazing. It doesn't look like he's shaving yet, and he's got that kind of wisdom from photography.
Somebody had a question about how to do color change.
Okay.
Yeah,
Something
I
you wanna touch
did.
quick?
We
I have a
can,
problem. Hey, I
it's
have a
probably a longer
problem.
discussion.
I'm sorry, I have a problem with my screen. All I'm seeing is whoever's talking.
That's,
That's the normal way it works.
Oh, okay, so I
As
don't,
long as nobody's sharing a screen.
okay, okay. Sorry.
Okay,
So for an assignment, if you have other suggestions for assignments, I'm open to it. That's the only thing that really jumped out at me after watching the video is maybe try some street photography, you know, with or without people, just go out and do some shooting. maybe that'll take us someplace. And then if you send in questions for Photoshop and techniques and blending modes, how to put in change colors, how to put people into a scene, you know, we can prepare for that and talk more about that at the next meeting.
Sounds good.
Good, yeah.
Sounds good.
You guys did really well with that assignment. I am very impressed.
I'm very embarrassed by my showing. Jeez, you guys are good.
You should be, Bob.
I'm not embarrassed. I didn't show anything.
I didn't either.
It's a lot of time.
Either.
Yeah.
I was just an observer.
Hey, Bob. Yeah. I'll be getting that RX 100 on Friday.
All right.
I got the 6 because
Oh, money.
it's like it's only $599 and the 7 is like $1,300 and there's only like 3 features that it's got the 7 has a video or a microphone jack. It has better auto-focusing on video. All of the stuff is towards video, and I don't do video at all. And
No, I know you can do amazing stuff
Yeah.
with any camera.
so we'll see how that works out. I'm getting anxious to try it out. You know, it's only 4 inches wide by about 2 3/8 high, something like that.
You're
Gonna
doing
have fun with that.
And it zooms up to 200. It's a actual it's not that's not a crop sensor 200. That's
optical zoom.
yeah, optical zooms out to 224, I believe, to 200. And
So
We'll
you get a
see.
new camera, and I think Gary's getting that .095.
that lens,
No, it's not.
is it TT Artist?
Man, that's a. What do you think of that comparison, Gary?
I thought it was pretty good. I've tried some older lenses on Sony and Fuji, and they seem to work pretty well. I mean, it's easy to focus if you're using old manual focus, but to use Leica lenses on some of these new cameras is pretty interesting.
Well, did you think that the difference between the two was much?
Not for $12,000 worth of difference. No, I didn't think.
We're talking about the Leica 0.95 aperture. So that's way wider open than a 1.4. Manual focus lens, 50 millimeters, 12,500. I've got a friend that's got one, loves it. But Gary found a quote cheap knockoff that looks almost as good for $800, and it fits on other brands of camera.
There's plenty of information out there. It's a company called 7 Artisans.
There's just so much unique new lenses coming out the last 2-3 years, and they're good.
Yes.
A lot of
For
them-
whoever is selling all the filters, what are these breakthrough filters they're talking about?
Which kind of filters?
Did you get the email saying someone is selling all
Ron.
the filters?
Ron.
Yeah, breakthrough filters. They're really, really nice. They've got a website. If you go on there, they've got articles and so forth where they do comparisons on light casts and transmissivity. I don't think I butchered that word, but they're relatively reasonably priced. And I had all B&W before, and I had B&W for years, and I used to get the top of the line B&W filters, and I like the breakthrough a lot better.
Okay.
And
Really?
the other thing about them is that I really like is the body is brass. It's not aluminum like everybody else's, and
That's
they don't
nice.
get stuck as easily.
Oh, yeah.
Plus the edge on it, instead of regular knurling, it's almost like little gear teeth, and you can grip it much better. Now, having said all that, I still maintain the rule of thumb is don't ever tighten any filter all the way up.
Oh, no,
Always
never.
go, and when I feel it hit the lens or whatever, I back it off about 1/4 of a turn or a 1/2 a turn. That way they don't get stuck.
Most of the reasons they get stuck are because they're almost all of them out there are aluminum. Only the really
Yeah.
expensive ones are brass.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
I've been getting into the filters there quite a bit, and I've always had B&W as top of the line, especially in variable NDs. And I just saw a technical review between B&W and Polar Pro, and they ranked a tie for number one by quite a bit. So that's something also to think about. Those are two big name brands.
And Breakthrough is a company in San Francisco, and it's another thing. If you care about that sort of thing, I do. They're made in the U.S.
Right.
But
Yeah, I
they
have the Breakthrough
they
also, and I like them.
use German glass.
Yeah, if they use German shot glass, that's what you want.
Yeah, that's what they. The rest of it is all made in the U.S. But I've been real pleased with them. I tried a few. Alana St. Laurent told me about it originally, and someone had suggested to her a few years ago. And so I tried one or two, and over the past few years, I've transited to everything as Breakthrough now. And so I've got a little bin full of really nice B&W filters that I'm willing to part with at fire sale prices.
Have any variable
Well, 6 or
NDs? 'Cause I
7
guess
of them
I'll
already
try to buy
this
one of
morning.
those.
So please send Bob some ideas for questions for the next meeting. And as always, if you need to email us, do that. Glad to get back to you.
Since I have a few club members in this group, I've got to change out the December assignment because it was to shoot hockey, and people are saying, hey, I can't shoot hockey, because they don't have it. So what do you think about having the December assignment be the assignment we have for this group for next week, or next 2 weeks from now? Street
Yeah.
photography without people.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that.
I'm good.
That's a
That
good
makes
idea.
it nice and simple. I don't have to think hard and burn up my brain.
I think the idea of introducing street photography to your group is a big step forward. I think that would help.
Just bear in mind that the street photography shots the highest score will be a 1.8 in this club.
Probably.
Depends if you have people or you don't.
If it's not a bird on a stick, it won't.
Well,
Butterfly on a flower.
Right.
yes,
Exactly.
that's been the complaint forever. But with the voting the way we're doing it, and we get a lot more interactive discussion on images, all of you guys making comments about the things you're doing here and learning educates the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
So just think about that as you're commenting on various kinds of images.
Plus the toolbox that you're accumulating now is getting bigger and bigger. That first meeting we had, we talked about, that little artography tool that we introduced. And that was really the only thing that we had thrown out there. Now, think of all the different options that you have when you're working on your things. You probably have a half dozen or a dozen tools in your toolbox to go ahead and try to be, creative with some of these things. So it's
Yep.
fun to experiment.
Okay, guys, it's been a good meeting, and I did record this, and I'll be sending it. Who wants a copy? Because it's
No.
kind of a
Please.
pain to send them out.
I do. This is Ann.
I will.
Me too, Bob H.
Okay.
And
Sorry,
Kenji,
Linda also.
yeah, what the heck, put me down too.
I think it's almost unanimous now.
Make it everybody.
So Ann, Bob, Ken, Joseph, other Ann,
Mike?
Mike. That's it?
You better send me one, Bob, so when you lose it, then I can
Yeah,
give it
good. I
back
was
to you.
just going to say that. and give it. Well, I can only send 4 at a time. So I can do that in 2 bouts.
I have one, I want to leave you with a comment that's not photography, but it's appropriate to the time period that we're coming into the rest of this year until November. about what's the difference between a horse race and a political campaign. In a horse race, the whole horse runs.
Yeah.
Okay, bada boom, bada bing.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Wonderful audience here at Hojo's.
Good night.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.